Hello, my name is Sean, and in this video, I'd like to share with you a new model of reality that I'm able to acquire or discover or recognize, whatever you want to call it, from few of the teachers who have been a lesson in life. And I hope by communicating this message to you, I can pass along the joy, the peace that goes with this realization. So for most of our life, we feel like we are inside a world. Most of us feel like we're a person and the world out there, there's a world out there. Some people who are very optimistic, they think there's a very good world out there. There are some people who are very pessimistic. They think it's a dangerous world out there. And we look at things like CNN and seeing all this negative news, etc. And it could be very scary, by this model of reality. And it never occurs to us to actually pause and take a look at what's really taking place. So this insight and realization is that is not what it appears to be. It's almost like a very interesting and convincing delusion that we think we are separated and we are a separate person. So this insight occurred to me when I was listening to one of the talks by one of my teachers named Rupert Spira, who, by the way, is far better at communicating some of these concepts than I am. But I'm just trying my best to communicate it in my own language to hopefully either communicate the message fully to you or to inspire you so that you go listen to him, right? So I'm going to put some of his links on my video so that if that inspires you to do, then, reach out to other things. But basically, here's an old model of reality and a new model. I want to do a comparison between the two. So the old model of reality says there is this Big Bang, this random thing called Big Bang happening, and out of it arises this thing called matter, which, by the way, after all these science, nobody has found what's called matter, because the more we look for it, the more it escapes us. So this model says there's this Big Bang, out of it arises this dead stuff called matter. Out of the matter arose this weird thing called soil and the earth. Out of it arose this thing called biology, like an animal. And out of this animal arose this thing called a brain. And out of the brain arose this tiny thing called consciousness that's able to know, right? So that's the old philosophy. That's the Newtonian linear perspective, which we've been brought up with. We thought, our religious says that God has created a world like a potter creates pots, right? So we feel like we are made by this thing, and this matter turns into a mind, and the mind turns into consciousness. And by consciousness, what I mean, the definition is the awareness that's hearing these words and understanding these words. You're able to understand my words right now. I'm aware of this room. The thing that's aware of this thing, the knowingness that's aware of this, what we call consciousness. So this is the old model of reality. Now the new model of reality, and which is the one that's more in alignment in our own personal experience, because this thing was a story. Big Bang is a story, matter is a story, it's a concept that we made. Mind is a concept, time is a concept. The only thing that we really know for sure is what we experience. So there are some things that we think, such as what's our name, where are we from, how many people, live in Canada. These are all concepts, right? But there are things that we know, such as the temperature in the room, or whether, you're alive right now. If I ask you right now, are you alive? Anybody who can hear these words will say yes, because this is something you experience. It's self-evident. There's something very unique with it. So the new model of reality says there is infinite consciousness. That's the beginning of it, right? There's this infinite consciousness. Out of it arises the thing called the mind, right? So out of the infinite consciousness arises the mind. Out of the mind arises the senses. Touch, the seeing, the hearing, the tasting. Out of arises the five senses. Out of the five senses arises the illusion of a world. It's exactly like you're looking at a screen monitor. The screen is perfectly normal. Out of all these different pictures and sounds, we get the illusion that there are actually people there, but there's nothing really there. It's just a screen. In the same way, in our own personal experience, what we experience life is a one instant whole. We are always experiencing awareness. Out of this aware conscious being arises a mind, arises our senses. Out of the senses arises experience of a separate self. We feel we are a separate person, you know? So, but it's actually very interesting because the consciousness that we all come out of is the one consciousness. Just in the same way, the present moment, like if me and you are watching this video together, the presence that we share is the one present moment, right? The awareness that's aware of these words is the one universal awareness. We each have our individual thoughts. So my thoughts will arise out of the awareness that I am. Your thoughts will arise out of the awareness that you are. And it gives us the illusion that there are two separate people talking to each other. But the minute we stop talking, the awareness. Are you with me? So this is the new model of reality, and this is the old model of reality. Now, I understand, you know, if you're totally new to this concept of non-duality, that what I'm sharing with you may sound really odd, strange, even crazy, you know. And you may be asking, so why do I even need to know this? What's the difference? Well, the reason we need to know this is because this is the source of our joy. Source of our joy. You know, I used to do drugs and ecstasy and a lot of different things. I don't know if you've ever done drugs, but I used to do a lot of drugs. So when you do ecstasy, what happens? Nothing really changes in your present experience. The only thing that happens is all your negative thoughts will stop. The sense of separation stops, and we feel one with everyone. You see someone, you feel love for them. Now, you can have a scientific explanation. You can, the serotonin came out and dopamines are pumping and da-da-da-da. But in our own experience, what we're experiencing is lack of fear and the presence of love, which is identification as ourselves with others. So we see others and we feel a sense of oneness. We feel at home, right? So the same feelings can be present right now because the ecstasy itself doesn't give us anything. It only stops the fearful thoughts. So by acquiring this new perspective, we are acquiring this state of inevitable ecstasy. Happiness for no reason, the state of pure joy. So now here's the cool thing. Now, this is very cool. When I discovered this, it was instant feeling of lightness. So I'm going to explain this to you and hope you understand what I mean. If you don't understand right away, maybe meditate on it, or hopefully you will, hopefully somebody will. So, and that is when Rupert told me, look at this room. All there is to a room is the knowing of it. What do you know of a room? Look at the room around you right now. What do you know of this room? You know, we feel like, well, there's space here. There's a space and the room is over there and I'm over here. But in our own experience, if you were a child that was just born right now, you don't know labels, you don't know distance, you don't know anything. All you know is what you see and what you feel with your senses. So explain to me as a child, what do you see? Me right now, and let's do this together. So right now I'm looking, and what do I see? There's colors, so there's perceiving, there's perception. And if I touch the wall, there's sensation. So all there is to a room is the seeing and the sensing. And all there is to seeing and sensing is the knowing of it. Is the knowing of it. So knowing, sensing, so sensing the wall is made out of knowing of it. Seeing the wall is made out of knowing of it. So the one common denominator between seeing, touching, feeling, noticing a thought, sensation is the concept called knowing. And the knowing is the commonality which we all share. So if you look at this room, the room loses its density because it's made out of knowing. It's not made out of solid thing called matter or matter, which is a concept in the mind. You know, if you think of this wall as matter of hard stuff, which our mind conceptualizes, right? We feel a certain way, we feel like we're stuck in a room. But if you look at it from a new perspective, we take the position of a screen and we look at everything as knowing, as perceiving, as sensing. Then there's only one common denominator, and that's called knowing. right? So the five senses become into the river of knowing. The knowing gives rise to the five senses. And with this, there's a lightness in the world. I remember when I felt that, it was almost like, when I first noticed that, it was almost like ecstasy, instant ecstasy, feeling of lightness. So all there is to seeing is the knowing of it. All there is to a table is sensing and seeing. All there is to thinking is images and sounds. And all there is to these images and sounds is the knowing of it. I really hope you follow what I'm saying, because it's so exciting. I'm sure some of you are following, because I'm not, like especially, intelligent or gifted or anything. And these insights has come through, and like, it feels so beautiful. Because like once you have this insight and realization, and then we realize that there is no world out there. There's no world out there. There is only being that we share as one. And if you ever want to find like world peace, we can never have world peace if the people of the world don't have inner peace. So that's why I feel like, instead of trying to like save the world by like, creating like movements and all that thing, it's better to just recognize what we essentially are, which is this knowing, this loving knowing, and recognize our unity with each other. So I hope this talk kind of evoke a new curiosity in you. If you're totally new to this concept, you can look up Rupert Spira. You can look up, books by David R. Hawkins, anything that has to do with non-duality, which is beyond the logical mind, because reality is not linear. So logic is a linear. It comes in data form, like bit. It's bits, right? But reality is non-linear. There's no A plus B plus C causes D. It's like a hologram. So that's why understanding this concept is beyond the mind. Now, just because it's beyond the mind, it's not like it's illogical or it's woo-woo or it's feelings. No, you actually understand it experientially, which is knowing. So knowing is a higher degree of knowing than thinking. So thinking is being known by knowing, which is the consciousness. So in this video, I wanted to introduce a new model of reality, which infinite consciousness creates. Out of the infinite consciousness arises the mind. Out of the mind arises the senses of hearing, seeing, touching. Out of these senses creates the illusion of a sense of separation. As a result of this illusion of sense separation, there comes to life an apparent separate self that has needs and that has fears. So we crave pleasure, we crave relationships, success, money, whatever, so that we can feel peaceful, because we are afraid that we're going to die soon, and that we are afraid of getting hurt by other separate selves. So a new separate self comes into an apparent being. And then on the other hand, so this separate self has two activities: either seeks pleasure or desires, or things, or food, or shelter, sex, has fears, anxiety, neurosis, fight with others, etc. And through this dance of chasing and running away, it creates an illusion of separation, which is all made of thoughts. But the minute thinking stops, in the present moment, everything is one, and all is ever left is the awareness, consciousness, which we all share as one being. The old concept of the world, which we acquire through Newtonian paradigms, which comes from basically being unconscious. It basically says there is a world that out of it came matter, out of matter came the mind, out of the mind came consciousness. Now, I ask you to put it in your own experience. In your own experience, have you ever had an experience that you were not aware of this present moment? And if you're very honest with yourself, you always have been aware. And you may say, well, Sean, what about the times when I go to sleep, or when I'm unconscious? In our own experience, we never go to sleep. In our own experience, tonight, before you go to sleep, be very watchful of this. Say, at this moment, my eyes are closing. Our experience says, eyes are closing, darkness arises, dreaming arises, nothingness arises, awakening arises. But then we look at time and it says 8 hours has passed by. And then the mind comes in and says, you have been sleeping inside a world for 8 hours. But in our own experience, there has been no 8 hours. There has been no, sleeping. There has only been an experience of seeing. So this is very interesting stuff that I'm talking about, because it's the end of our, chasing for pleasure in false things. That's not to say we're not going to create success or reach out for our goals, but this is the only real way to live. And there's some really funny joy that comes out of this. I can't explain it. It's almost like you feel so happy, you feel so peaceful, because let's say you're sitting behind like a red light and you're bored and you have to get to somewhere, and it's just like a boring day, right? If you just tap into what I'm talking about, if you just ask yourself, am I aware right now? And know yourself as this infinite aware being, not as separate person inside the world made out of the matter and flesh that's bound to die, but as the aware presence, which is infinite, which is always been, which which is knowing the mind and the thinking. When we rest as this aware being, there's so many joy and natural beauty in that. It's unbelievable. So, and lastly, I share is that this is a process. So don't be hard on yourself if you're still kind of in the process of going back and forth in it. When I heard first these talks in like 2000 and I don't know, many years ago, was Eckhart Tolle was talking about the power of presence, the beauty of presence. So I used to practice like, okay, I'm going to be present right now. I'm going to be present right now. Okay, I'm feeling the sense in my hand. I'm feeling this. And it was very difficult at first, but that, if you're riding your bicycle really fast and you're trying to stop, the minute you put your feet on the floor, it scratches. It seems very like you're going, like it seems like so difficult because you were not noticing how fast you were going. But once you sound and stop, then it's easy. So I guess what I say is that if your mind has been constantly dominating your life, if you've been running from pleasure to thing, it's very difficult to sometimes meditate or to feel peace when we say, be aware of being aware, or recognize who you are, etc. But we have bits of moments, just like, before it rains, it like little drops comes in and then drops, and then all of a sudden starts pouring. In the same way, our evolution of consciousness is reaching a point, on a relative level speaking, on this linear level of thinking speaking, is reaching a point where more and more people are becoming aware of these truths, and more people are recognizing that what we essentially are is not a separate person, that we're not, limited things that are going to die. The body's going to die, but the one that's aware of the body is always awake. It can't die. So because we are life, and all those things that goes with it. So I hope this talk was kind of helpful. I know I had fun doing it. So I will talk to you soon. Thank you for watching. I love you. Bye-bye.